right, that was quick. On the heels of Stewart HAAS Racing announcing they're going out of business, which we discussed last night, but we're going to discuss it again today. Sorry, it's that time of the season. Front Row Motorsports announces that they're expanding to 3 cars next season. So guess where one of those charters is coming from? And Austin Hill finally gets his suspension for wrecking Cole Custer under caution. So let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, first things first, let's jump right into the Front Row Motorsports news. They gave us this announcement. We have a very positive outlook on the future of NASCAR, and as the sport plans for success, so do we. Today, that means having a plan for expanding back to 3 cars in the NASCAR Cup Series. I always have the vision to continue to grow and improve our team, and that commitment and desire never changes. I'm committed to the sport and its passionate fans and partners. Front Row Motorsports owner Bob Jenkins. Starting a new team from scratch is always a challenge, but with the opportunities in front of us, the talent we have in our leadership, and a bit of runway to get there, I'm confident we can produce 3 competitive programs out of the box for the 2025 season. We haven't lost sight of what our goals for 2024 are, to get our teams into the playoffs for both series. If we can keep up the speed on the track and have a little bit of luck come our way, we can achieve our objectives. Front Row Motorsports General Manager Jerry Preece. So there you go, the first domino in the Stewart HAAS Racing deal falls. We now know that Front Row Motorsports will get one of those charters, and it's interesting they didn't get 2, so they're going to expand to a 3-car team. That leaves open 2 spots. The big rumor, now these are just rumors, this is just what everybody's saying. Who knows which way it'll go, because sometimes it goes that way, sometimes it doesn't. I'm just repeating basically what they've sort of put out there. Bob Pockrass, everybody, all the normal usual suspects, that Josh Berry and Noah Gragson look like they will be the front runners to fill in those other 2 seats, joining Todd Gilliland over there at Front Row Motorsports. What numbers they will run and all that stuff, that is yet to be determined, but that looks like that's how that's going to settle out. So we do have the first domino from that Stewart HAAS Racing deal falling down. And before we move on to the Stewart HAAS Racing going out of business, or whatever you want to call it, it is interesting, like I said, that they're only going to 3 teams. That gives credence to what Jordan Bianchi reported, that going forward, you're only going to be able to have a 3-car team. Hendrick and Joe Gibbs Racing would be grandfathered in. I assume they won't be grandfathered in forever, because there's no possible way you can legitimately, well, it's NASCAR, I shouldn't say no possible way, but you wouldn't think that they would let 2 teams continue to have 4 teams while the rest of the teams continue to have 3 teams. That wouldn't fly for me, so personally. So I think eventually Hendrick and Joe Gibbs Racing will have a timeline to give up that 4th car, but it does basically give credence to the fact that going forward, teams will only have 3-car stables. So with that being said, we have a little bit more information than we had last night when we were talking about this, but Stewart HAAS Racing going out of business, we now know one of those charters will go to Front Row Motorsports, but where will the other charters go and where will the drivers go? Let's start with the drivers. And apparently the hottest commodity out of Stewart HAAS Racing among these drivers is going to be Chase Briscoe. Apparently he brings sponsorship with him. He's got 1 win, 26 top 10s in his career. He's been to the playoffs before, so he seems to be the hottest commodity of these. And the big rumors with him are RFK or the Wood Brothers. I've heard it both ways. It looks like the Wood Brothers, I guess, are the leading candidate. If you're following all the normal NASCAR beat writers and stuff like that, they seem to think the Wood Brothers have a way in. That would put Chase Briscoe with Penske equipment. We've seen the 21 car get into the playoffs with Matt DiBenedetto and with Ryan Blaney, and Paul Menard gave it some good runs too. I think if he didn't get into the playoffs, he got right close to it a couple of times. So we've seen that car have speed in the past. And that leaves Harrison Burton possibly looking for a ride, if you believe that. Or you can look at the RFK scenario. With Front Row Motorsports only taking one of those charters, if RFK gets the other charter, do they go after Chase Briscoe, or do they go after another Ford driver? Maybe put a Cole Custer or possibly a Riley Herbst in there if they don't get Chase Briscoe. But you have to mention, with all this, all these rumors and stuff like that, that RFK possibly could also get Briscoe. But we'll get to the charter stuff in a minute. I want to stick to the drivers as we go on here. Then you've got Noah Gragson, and you've also got Josh Berry, and I'm going to group these 2 together because they have basically the same statistics. One has 6 top 10s, and the other one has 5 top 10s in their basically one full season, because we're halfway through this season, and both of them got about a half of a season last year in the Cup Series. So if you look at their last 2 years combined, they've both got about a full season in so far, and they both have reasonably about the same statistics. And it seems like from everything I'm looking at and reading that they're probably the front-running candidates to replace Michael McDowell and be the extra car over there with Todd G over there at Front Row Motorsports. So I'm leaning toward that's probably what will happen with them. And that brings us to Ryan Preece and Harrison Burton. And I'm going to group these two together because even though Harrison Burton didn't drive for Stewart HAAS Racing, it seems like from all accounts that he's probably going to be out of the 21 next season. And if you look at their statistics, which this was crazy, but I did look it up. If you look at their statistics over the past 2 seasons, they're pretty much similar. They both have 3 top 10s, and that kind of blew me away because the perception is because Ryan Preece is so good in modifieds, and he's an elite modified driver, but for whatever reason, whether you can't have continuity with a crew chief or his feedback is not channeling into this car, whatever the reason, he hasn't had the results in the Cup Series. And then you got Harrison Burton. I feel like he was rushed up. I think a few more seasons in the Xfinity Series would have built up his racecraft and given him a better shot. Now, I understand why you put Harrison Burton in there. You're banking on everybody. This is a new car to everybody, so it's a new car to Harrison Burton. So I understood the logic at the time, but it hasn't panned out in results. So I think both of them going down to a lower level. Now, whether Ryan Preece races modifieds again or whether he wants to stick around and do the Xfinity Series, that's anybody's guess. But it does look like, from all indications, that both of these two drivers will be looking for a ride. But once again, this is all speculation, so it's really interesting. All this stuff happening at once. So now we look at the charters. Obviously, we know Front Row Motorsports is going to get one, and if the rumors are true, they're going to also take over the building over there at Stewart HAAS Racing, so we know that all that is probably accurate from the previous rumors. So now we look at the other rumors, and if they've been right so far, so it's looking like Trackhouse and 2311 will be the teams that get 2 of the other charters there, and that's going to leave 1 up for grabs. But let's talk about Trackhouse first. If Trackhouse gets one of these charters, it's reasonable to assume they're going to put either Zane Smith or Shane Van Gisbergen in one of those cars. So I feel like that's pretty much set in stone over there. That's probably what will happen. 2311 is a little more interesting. So if 2311 gets one of these charters, I think you could make an argument. Corey Heim is obviously the next candidate in the Toyota development chain, lineup, or anything like that, whatever you want to call it. So I feel like Corey Heim would be a prime candidate. Or if you go back to some of the older rumors, is 2311 making a push to try to get Kyle Busch back in a Toyota? Kyle Busch driving over there for 2311. And some people have thrown out Denny Hamlin will go over there and drive for his own team. Denny Hamlin just signed a multi-year contract with Joe Gibbs Racing, so that's probably not going to happen. But who knows? It's been a wild, silly season. But he signed a multi-year contract with Joe Gibbs Racing, so I don't see Denny Hamlin driving for his own team. Then that leaves Legacy, RFK, RCR, and maybe JTG Daugherty. They've expressed some interest. Maybe Kaulig. Kaulig said they've got some big plans and they're going to announce them soon, so maybe Kaulig is in that mix too. So let's go down the list of drivers they would get. We've already mentioned RFK. They would probably go after Chase Briscoe if they can get him, and if they can't get him, maybe you bring in a Cole Custer or a Riley Herbst, somebody from the Ford development program, or maybe you go after a Sammy Smith. I don't know. That one is sort of up in the air. I feel like if RFK knows they can get Briscoe, they'll definitely get the charter. If not, if they can't get Briscoe, maybe this falls to maybe an RCR grabs it. We know they want to bring Austin Hill up to the Cup Series, so then you would have the 2 Austins and Kyle Busch over there at RCR potentially next season. So that's an interesting one to watch. So I think we're pretty confident that RCR would probably bring Austin Hill into the mix. Then you've got Legacy. Let's say 2311 does get Kyle Busch. What if Legacy goes out here and gets this charter and goes after and gets Corey Heim? They get the charter, put Corey Heim in the, I guess, 44 car, whatever the car would be over there in the Petty lineage, whichever number they want to go with over there. So put him in one of those cars, and that would be a pretty good fit for him because then you would get Kyle Busch and Corey Heim. Kyle Busch, of course, to me, in my mind, still the face of Toyota. Sort of like Dale Jarrett was going to always be the face of Ford, even though he raced a few years for Toyota toward the end of his career. Then you've got teams that nobody are really talking about, but JTG Daugherty, if they partner up with whoever they're going to partner up with, a lot of people are saying maybe they partner with Junior or something like that. Maybe that happens and they go grab somebody that maybe Junior wants, maybe a Sammy Smith, maybe a Justin Allgaier. Maybe they try to lure Martin Truex Jr. To go over there because Junior on his podcast has talked about possibly having Martin Truex Jr. run for him. I have no idea. I've just seen a bunch of fans throw that out there, and everybody always asks, do you think Dale Jr. will get a charter? So there you go. That's the necessary Dale Jr. if he gets a charter talk right there. So we'll get that one out of the way. Maybe it's with JTG because speculation, might as well speculate, right? And then you have Kaulig. Kaulig is the real wild card here. Kaulig has a ton of drivers that they already have in the mix. Kaulig could keep one seat open over there in the Cup. What if they get the third one, right? You would have Daniel Hemrick over there in the 31. The 16 could still be an all-star car, or you could put Shane Van Gisbergen in there. If the rumored connection with Trackhouse next season is right, maybe Trackhouse just runs him over there like they ran Zane Smith Inspire for this season. And then you would have another open car. And who could you put in that open car? I don't know, maybe A.J. Allmendinger? A.J. Allmendinger would be a pretty good fit if they got a third charter. And Chris Rice has teased that they've got some big things that they're working on. What if this is the big thing they're working on? So that's one to me that's flying under the radar. But yeah, you could see if they get it, which is all speculation, A.J. Allmendinger, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Daniel Hemrick over there next season. And I think that would be a pretty solid lineup for Kaulig. Not only that, but Chris Rice said, hey, if you're looking for a job from SHR, why don't you give us a ring? So if they bring over a lot of the really good talent from SHR, you could significantly see Kaulig make a huge jump in performance next season. So I'm saying Kaulig is probably the biggest wild card in all of this because nobody is really talking about him. So yeah, a lot to digest over there. But another thing that came out today was Austin Hill finally gets his penalty. I was expecting it to be announced yesterday, but NASCAR announced today it's going to be a 25-point fine and also $25,000. Now, if you remember in the past, Ty Gibbs, he got a $30,000 fine for making contact under a red flag or under a caution at Martinsville. Noah Gragson 2 years ago at Road America for intentionally wrecking. I can't remember if it was under caution or not, but he intentionally wrecked somebody. And Sheldon Creed also at Nashville. So this sort of falls in line. These are similar penalties that NASCAR has given out in the past. I know some people did want a suspension for Austin Hill, but this 25 points is effectively a one-race suspension because it's basically one race's worth of points, and it does take him from leading the points to dropping him down to third in points. So NASCAR is consistently inconsistent, but on this particular matter, it does look like it does have some precedent that it has followed. All right, big day, a lot of news once again. So if you made it this far, I would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll keep making these things. If you're already subscribed, I appreciate you all as well. If you've got a question, comment, or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section. I am trying to get to them. Tons of comments. I'm still trying to get the ones from the other videos, but I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. If you want to help out the channel, the merch store, the link for it is in the description. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.